Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. This week, your faithful puppet commentator is back on a topic I originally covered 10 months ago, and that is the largely detrimental effects of Jews over the global economy, nations, governments, and overall well-being of billions of people worldwide. After much having come to my cloth and fiber brain regarding this subject of late, I felt like there was much to add to the conversation regarding Jews, Israel, and overall global well-being, or should I say, lack thereof. This puppet makes no apologies whatsoever for speaking the absolute truth on this subject matter, no matter how many might decry anti-Semite or anti-Zionist. In fact, it is this puppet's distinct belief that these labels are bandied about liberally, much like bigot and racist are by the left in a widespread censorship strategy. Well, guess what? This puppet ain't going to be censored by liberals, loons, or other miscreants. It is, though, friends and family, becoming more and more evident all the time as to the depth and strength of the corruption being ramrodded by the Jews, along with being all the more difficult to make excuses for them any longer. While I do recognize the atrocities put upon this religious sect during the reign of Germany in World War II, it also needs to be noted that there are and have been other mass genocides before and since that elicited barely a yawn from either the United States or any of its Western European allies. All one has to do is look to Idi Amin and the brutal slaughter of 300,000 Ugandans during the 1970s, Pol Pot and the now infamous killing fields of Cambodia, where 3 million lost their lives during the late 1970s, Mao Zedong and his Great Leap Forward campaign of horror and suffering in China that left up to 65 million dead in the 1940s through the 1960s, and of course the more recent slaughter of enforced internment one ethnic Uyghurs in Western China by the ruthless dictator Xi Jinping's regime. Not a single outside nation stepped in to stop these hideous sprees, nor really spoke up much at all in some cases. So the question remains, why was the mass slaughter of Jews during World War II so fiercely fought against by numerous Western allies, while so many similar incidents of ethnic cleansing in the world went off without much fanfare really at all? Why is that? Would it have anything to do with the Jews who just so happen to run much of the worldwide banking and finance sectors? Now let us examine for a moment some major malignant factors on the world stage as it pertains to Jews with disproportionate influence over politics, business, and overall quality of life for each and every human being. I'm going to start with one that some watching this may know nothing about at all. A man named Arnold Rothstein. Who was he, you're asking? Well, he was none other than the first really big mafia crime boss in New York City during the Roaring '20s. Everything from illicit liquor production to sporting event fixing to loan sharking, he was into it. In fact, he was the one who paid the Chicago White Sox to throw the 1920 World Series of Baseball in the event now known as the Black Sox scandal. Yep, that was Rothstein. Later felons such as Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Jack Legs Diamond, Frank Costello, and Dutch Schultz were all his proteges and learned from the Jewish kingpin rather well. Next up on the corrupt Jewish wall of shame, why that would be none other than Bill Gates. Yes, that Bill Gates. Starting out at the hotbed of Jewish criminal leanings, Harvard University, Gates co-founded Microsoft Corporation with Paul Allen in 1975. Gates went on to steal the personal computer market directly from under the nose of his first major account, IBM, then went on to illegally force Netscape out of the burgeoning web browser market at the hands of his Explorer browser, force-fed to multi-millions along with his Windows operating system. The United States government then sued him and Microsoft Corporation in an antitrust suit and won. Later times have seen Gates implicated as a regular visitor to the infamous Epstein Island, along with using his wealth and influence to push agendas of at least questionable validity, such as global climate change and the ever-questionable carbon emission taxes. In fairness, has Gates done some good things? Yes. His Gates Foundation funds healthcare initiatives in impoverished nations worldwide and sustainable agriculture. But his other endeavors listed prior tend to outweigh those. Who else among prominent Jews has contributed to or is currently contributing to the moral and or quality of life decay in the world overall? Well, let's try the national government of Israel. While I never fault them for taking out Hamas or for defending their people in the event of unprovoked attacks from the Arab nations, it needs to most certainly be pointed out that the Israel stronghold on American politicians and the U.S. military overall. In fact, the U.S. military has been at Israel's lap attack dog to extinguish Israel enemies over the past 30 plus years. You name the Arab state that Israel does not like, the U.S. has either attacked them over that time span or in the least applied sanctions. Why? Has the U.S. government and military offered similar protection status for any other nations in the world? No. Additionally, it has now come to light that one Jeffrey Epstein was possibly an intelligence operative of Israel's spy agency, Mossad. No other logical reasoning can account for the great amount of wealth amassed by Epstein, nor his basically untouchable status for so long as it pertains to tax evasion and entry into the New York education system despite having zero college degree whatsoever. Most likely, kids and cousins, Israel instructed the U.S. lapdog to stand down regarding Epstein for decades and look the other way, at least until he was no longer useful for their intents and purposes. Then he was finally indicted and jailed once Mossad was done with him. When it comes to questionable Middle East alliances and the U.S. strategically defending them, this puppet understands the petroleum draw to our infatuation with the House of Saud. But why are we the lapdog of Israel? Oh, the banking and finance sectors. Gotcha. Next nefarious Jew? Try Jeffrey Katzenberg. Never heard of him before? Well, he's the former head of the ultra-liberal Walt Disney Company, and their crimes are widespread and deep. And he's the current partner in another animation studio called DreamWorks SKG. They are known for the Shrek and Puss in Boots movies. Katzenberg has done everything in his power to demoralize and otherwise societally bankrupt the United States and other Western powers. He financially backs the Tide Center, which is a cover organization for radical left Black Lives Matter. He also financially backs something called the Feminist Majority Foundation, which is all about murdering infants in the womb and not requiring parental consent for minors to have these horrors performed upon their bodies and their in vitro children as well. Why is this puppet pointing out all the criminals and miscreants among Jews, you ask? Oh, probably because so much of the mainstream media is either Jewish-owned or quite simply declines to touch the subject for their own propaganda reasons. Somebody has to expose the truth, do they not? Now, one can make the case that psychopaths and sociopaths from every religious system have committed horrendous crimes over millennia, and this puppet would not argue against that in the slightest. What differs with modern Jewish despots is their overall far-reaching global reach and influence in all areas of life. Good night, my loyal viewers, and sleep well.